speaker up.
Here we go. Got still people connecting to audio, getting things kind of lined out.
So Gary, are you officially one of the expat Californians now?
I am getting very, very close. We actually have the house up there. We did some beautiful driving up there. We're moving stuff up, but we will officially be up there probably around the 5th of July.
Gotcha.
But we're moving in.
Good.
Thank you.
Nice. Hold on one second here.
Gotcha, Hudson.
Okay. All right. So, we're up on YouTube? No, go ahead, Rick.
We're
Sorry.
set.
I was
Good
just
to go, guys.
all right. No more.
All right,
chit
so
chat.
we're up on YouTube. Good to see everybody. I'm a little jet lagged, but we're going to try to move through stuff as fast as we can today because we have a bunch of amazing images, and I couldn't be more proud of this community as a whole for just like submitting such amazing spring photos. Every time we do a call for images, I'm kind of blown away at the quality, and I think all of us here feel that way. So we got the whole regular crew here today. We got Woody and Rick and David and Darren. It's good to see everybody else's smiling faces here. We have just a couple real quick announcements. There's a lot, people submitted a lot of questions. If we don't get a lot of time for questions because there's so many images to run through, we're going to save some of those for the next office hours, which because of some travel plans and some shooting schedule is going to be another 3 weeks out. It's June 1st, 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. And we're going to talk about night photography, stars and Milky Way shooting in particular. I'm working on a course on using a star tracker and doing some composite work with Milky Way to get really killer Milky Way stuff. I'm actually out shooting tomorrow night for some of that. So that's all in the works. And we'll particularly push night sky and Milky Way type questions off until we do that office hours in 3 weeks. Anybody else have any major stuff to say? Woody, Rick?
The one thing that, the last office hours, we talked a little bit about the DxO noise app, and since then, ON1's announced their own app. Neither Hudson nor I have had a chance to look at it yet. It's not supposed to be out to the end of June, but I imagine we will see it, and we'll talk a little bit more about it when it comes out. So
right.
And I just wanted to add that Hudson just mentioned that the next office hours is going to be about stars and night shooting. That office hours is open for signups now. So if you go to hudsonhenry.com/office hours, you can both get a link for today and sign up for next time, which is June 1st.
And that one will just be discussion. We're not going to do a photo gallery for that one. So
yeah, we're gonna kind of talk about the last few years of honing in on doing, what we have possible to us now with these high resolution sensors and amazing ISO and lightweight star trackers, and it's a cool time to be out shooting the night. And I'm excited to do more of that in the workshops that we have coming this early fall in August on the coast. So. All right, I'm going to jump in. I will say that for those, I don't know, I've heard from several of you who have tried out the DxO Pure Raw and are loving it, and I'm still really loving using that. So, and I have a link to that in the digital darkroom section of my links page if anybody's interested. There's a 30-day free trial with no watermark or anything. All right, so I'm going to jump in. I'm going to share this gallery because we've got a lot of images and not so much time. I'm going to just jump in here, and actually, hold on. I want to jump out to the full view. We'll start up at the top, and it starts with Adrian, and it's a really beautiful spring image. You've got the reflecting pool there, and
love the placement of the memorial. And the fact that it's just ever so slightly blurred. But really nice. Lovely shot. Really lovely shot.
Really nice. Great light.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Spring to me is just all about color, and a lot of the images in here showcase that. And this one I really like because of that splash of color so well placed through it. It kind of creates this diagonal line through the image, and it also is kind of on top of that winter detritus, the dead leaves of yesteryear. It's really nice.
I love the sharpness, and it's sharp where it needs to be and not where it doesn't. And it's another beautiful image. So many this month were just amazing.
Really nice, Arnie. Bill, lovely. I've been watching all the birds return and building nests at our place. This is probably a crop. I get the feeling that this is cropped in to just sort of bring us in on the important part of the scene, but it works. And the fact that the bird's eye and beak are sharp, that's what it's all about.
Yep.
Wow. Really nice, Carl.
Yeah.
It's really caught my eye. I was like, did David submit an image? David's done a bunch of beautiful hummingbird work for those who haven't looked through his galleries, but this is really nice, Carl. Just so spectacularly purple and sharp.
Shot with the 500 PF.
Yeah, that's such a great lens. Darren, fun little shot of the cross with the blurred flowers, and everybody's always doing the opposite. I'm not sure where this is at.
The University of Portland, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Nice.
It's a recreation of something I shot in 2004 when I didn't really know what I was doing. And so this is from 2019. I went back because we live pretty close to the campus. I went back with this shot in mind to kind of recreate it.
Fun. I might move the focus of it. I don't know. What do you think, Rick? Dead center working for you?
It's a little bit off. It's fine.
Yeah.
I love the fact that it is sharp and your eye is just immediately drawn to it.
Yeah, it's like a crosshair framed through the trees. Yeah. David. Then I saw that David did submit an image, and it's just wonderful.
This is from the backyard.
Man, such a great shot. That's spring right there. Not a great time if you're a grub, but wonderful time.
So you processed it with pure raw. Did it do a decent job for you?
It did. It was pretty high ISO.
Yeah. Yeah, you were like
16,000
ISO 1440
or 1440.
14400.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly maintains sharpness about that eye. My goodness. Love it. It's a beautiful shot, David.
Thanks.
The nest has just the right amount of detail. It's beautiful. Ken, Sunstar on the cactus. There's just something going on a little soft around these edges. There's some little artifact kind of.
Yeah, a bit of a halo.
Some little haloing I would work on. I like the composition. I love these cactuses silhouette kind of backlit in the background. And just that ridge line down low. Beautiful. But I'd go back in your edit and find out what's causing that bit of haloing. Just walk backwards through it. This is fun, Camille. The little bloom is so nice and sharp. I feel like I'd like to just shift a little to the left and fill the frame a little more with the architecture. This bit of bright blue kind of pulls me up to that top left corner. So I'd work on the framing a little bit. I feel like anytime there's something bright on the edge or something darker than the rest of the image on the edge, it just pulls your face there. Baby owl. Fun stuff. This is what's going on there? Oh, wait, sorry. This is Les.
That was a Lumix G9.
Boy, it's tricky. I think the focus, the one thing I'd say, it's such a nice shot. I like the framing. I like where the owl is in the frame. The one thing I'd say is that I think the focus is right here on this bow instead of right on the eye. So always working to make sure that focus point is pinpoint on the eye. It just looks a little soft there. Oh, and this one, I love the color. It's just all about color. Red and white, fun spring photo. I think that the one thing I'd say is this little corner here, I would crop or shift if you can, or move your zoom range a little bit and just avoid that one little corner without that red and white color in it. Just kind of
Yeah,
pulls my together.
I think what I would probably be doing in this instance is maybe continuing to work this scene to see if I could get in close enough to just get nothing but color
Yep.
and try and arrange the frame so that there's a little bit of movement to it, because it just feels very static to me. Maybe
Yeah, and I think with
diagonal or working
diagonal-
with whites,
Right. If you create a little bit more of a diagonal line between the red and white and get in tighter, I can see that too. But definitely not having the little bit of blue up there. That's an easy crop probably to work
Yep.
with. Wow. That is tight, Matt.
Yep.
Very cool. Very spring. I love the eye. It's just the only thing. The eye in this one, the bit of hairs on that leg. Crazy.
Yep, the field
So-
is beautiful. It just,
Yeah,
the
the depth-
softness and just wonderful.
Yeah. Do we have any exposure data on this? What lens we're working with here?
The D750 and a Tamron 70 to 300.
Yeah, nice.
Got it. Yeah. Huh. ISO 160, 1/200th of a second.
Wow. Pascal, this is just really nice. I love the arrangement of the trees in this and that mist. I always look at fog and mist as an opportunity to shoot a
Yeah.
landscape differently than you might. I might be drawn to tilt up just a little bit. Is this a pano? Do we have the date on this? Crop.
It is pano stitched out of 7 vertical images. Yep. So-
Nice. You could probably crop still a little bit too. I
Yeah.
don't know if I need this bit of foreground water.
No, I think I mean, if it were nothing but water, I mean, if you went through and took out some of the
Mhm.
reeds and stuff, but yeah, I think you could probably crop up a bit. It would still,
Right.
will give you a little bit more impact.
Yep, I think so. All right. Pat, spring. This is just the color's so nice in this. You've got it sharp where it needs to be. Nice
Oh.
line flowing through.
5D Mark III with the 24 to 105. That is one of the great all-time camera lens
Combo.
combinations.
Nice.
It really is.
Paul, this is a fun
So that's
little
a
black and white.
iPhone shot.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
The camera that you have with you.
Yep.
So is this
It's nicely
yeah,
processed. I like
it
the
is
black
nice
and white.
process. I do too. It really just pops. I love the little furry seed pods in this, and the diagonal of it is really nice how it flows through the frame. And it's just nice. I think the black and white was a great choice here. Let's see. Oh gosh, sorry about that. I lost the. There we go. Raleigh. I was going for the name and lost it. I would potentially back off on the processing just a little bit. There's sometimes when you go for pulling the highlights too much, you'll get this little halo around the sun, and sometimes it's better to let it just bleed out a little bit, be a little bit softer transition there when you have a lot of contrast. But it's a nice job capturing all the detail that you need.
So that's an HDR capture on the Z7 II, you said.
Yeah, it's definitely HDR. Beautiful, beautiful clouds and morning. I like the composition. The placement of the sun is great. I think that just, backing off on the white and highlight slider, make them, don't pull them down so much. And that's where you'll come back into having that, not having that edge that shows kind of blue there. That's just losing a complete channel in the color spectrum. And it's better to sometimes let that bleed a little bit.
Yeah.
Reno. Wow, what a beautiful spring image.
Wild mustard.
I think potentially it's got a little soft in the extreme foreground. This is a great shot to think about focus stacking. You know, if you want, either turn that aperture, dial that aperture down, or maybe focus stack a bit, because your closest
he says-
flower right.
He actually says it was windy that day, because that is a
Oh.
5-shot focus stack.
Oh, okay.
You know, I'd actually go up a bit. I'd tilt up a bit.
A little more of the sky. Yeah.
Yeah, the sky looks kind of dramatic and
Mhm.
pretty
You
cool.
and you'd have, if you moved up to here, you'd have more of just a uniform yellow background, but not having quite as much of the close. It's beautiful though. Beautiful
Love
scene.
the cows.
Me too. I don't know why it keeps doing that to me. Rob, so we're going to be talking a lot about Milky Way. We're going to be talking about, you know, getting that focus so that the stars are nice and sharp. I think this is probably focused for Mesa Arch here. So, you know, I'm pretty sure this is Mesa Arch, having stood there as many times as I have.
Yep.
Go ahead.
No, you said shot in February 2014.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, the technology is going so far right now with the ability to capture pinpoint sharp Milky Way. You know, some of this is probably from a longer exposure and a little bit of the Earth's rotation blurring the stars. You know, some of this up in here, it gets worse than the edge of the frame sometimes. But we're going to talk a lot about how to get this really truly pinpoint where it just looks perfect. And also, you know, some of the composite, there's a little bit of haloing in here. We're gonna talk about a lot of that, but it's a cool idea to go to a place that's so busy and so hard to shoot at the moment when everyone does, and be all by yourself with it and enjoy. I'm sure it was beautiful looking out over that view under the starlight. This is a fun composition, Stephen. That color, the purple, pulls me in. I wish it wasn't quite touching the edge, this one petal. That's my one complaint here. I love this shallow depth of field, and I wish that maybe this was just a tiny bit sharper there in that center of that purple flower. But I think it's a really cool concept. I love the shallow depth of field.
It's a nice composition.
It is, and it's interesting. It's unusual and cool. So I keep working that a little bit. Al and I were out, and the Milky Way did not really show up for us because we had this kind of hazy, cloudy stuff going on way up high, and we were trying to photograph a pier right near my in-laws' house. Al traveled quite a ways to come up to be close to where I was, and then traveled all the way back late in the morning, early in the morning, I should say. And so Al, he sent me this image and said he finally scratched the itch, went out on a clear night when I couldn't go. I think it's lovely, Al. You're practicing with the move, shoot, move. The stars look pretty sharp. You know, I back off on I warm the image up a little bit. It feels a little bluer than natural to me, but you know, that's all taste. White balance is whatever you want to make of it. Fun stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Galactic core is beautiful.
And this is in Florida, right, Al?
Yeah.
Oh,
what were you going to say?
Nothing.
Okay. Brooke, I like the line with the road going into the frame. I might, if you're going to utilize that, get a little lower, move a little to the left, have that line really moving through. Or, you know, if your focus is the flowers, maybe getting tighter to the flowers, lower down.
I think she said that she was shooting with the lens baby, and it was that was what was on the camera. So and those can be fun, but they can also be a bit difficult to sort of get everything the way you want it.
And I think with a lens baby, as with a wide angle lens, you know, whatever the subject that really matters to you is, getting in really unusually close to it can be your thing, you know, because with the lens baby, you could get down and you could pick, you know, one of these black-eyed Susans and just get it frame filling almost, and then tilt the thing to throw everything else out of focus. And that'd be something I'd play around with in a field of color like this.
Oh, African
Brilliant.
daisies. I love these.
Dave, the shallow depth of field is just lovely here, and I love the water on the petals. Really cool, great color, nice soft touch with the processing and the color. Beautiful. And there's something, that orange and that purple, this works for the complementary colors where it just creates an energy in the image. It's beautiful. Really nice. I like the square crop too. David, little bee going nuts there on that flower. What's this shot with?
Panasonic GX8.
Yep.
150 millimeter, or was it 300 millimeter and 35 millimeter turn.
Well,
he actually had a question if he thought he needed to get the bee sharp.
Well, it's shooting bees is a tricky deal. The best way to is a tremendous amount of patience. You got to go someplace where there are flowers, the bees are working, and get the flower in perfect focus and wait for the bee to come in. And kind of frame filling, and people who give us these macro photos of bees at work, that they spent hours and hours at a flower waiting for the bee to visit that flower. I think that's the only way to do it. You can't sort of hunt the bee following it.
I think too, he shot this at 40th of a second. This is one where I'd probably raise the ISO a bit, shoot a little bit faster. One thing I do processing wise I'd probably drop a radial filter over the bee to sort of create almost a vignette around the rest of the greenery, because the bee does kind of get lost in this one.
And I think a bit of careful dodging and burning too. That background underneath the bee could be faded out significantly. Yeah, agreed. And I think a faster shutter speed is going to help. And I really do think, especially when you've got a micro four thirds camera like that, get in close, long lens, as close as you can get, and really fill up a flower in the frame and wait for your bee to visit. Now, Gary, really nice, soft, shallow depth of field. And that blue is stunning. Great composition. With a branch up, no distractions. He's just got such a nice little look to him too. He's as interested in you as you are in him or her. Really
color
cute.
is just wonderful. Colors, background, just really sort of makes it.
So this is
Love
Harris.
dogwoods. Yep.
Yeah, we just planted a dogwood here to replace one of the many trees we lost in our ice storm. Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. It's so tricky when you've got a complicated background here. I like the blur. It's tricky when, I feel like I need some place that's a little more focused. I don't know. It's a tricky one, because if you're going to add more aperture to this particular branch of flowers, it's going to wind up making the background seem more obtrusive. It's going to bring more detail out in it, and yet you don't have quite enough detail on the flowers on the branch. The fact that they start going soft.
Well, and it's also probably windy.
All of it is working against you a little bit. These shots are so much more complicated than you would think when you see one done perfectly. And I think that one of the keys to doing this kind of thing is looking for that one branch of flowers that's further away from other branches in the background, and then getting close into it so that you can really blur the background while you still have enough aperture to get your branch of flowers sharp. But it's nice. And I love the blue and the green in the backdrop.
Harris was asked if he could have would focus stacking help there?
You could, that's an interesting point. You could go really shallow depth of field and start with your focus probably on this guy and do a
although
focus
it's windy.
stack.
I mean, that's the thing is, he was shooting at a 5,000th of a second. So,
and I'm going to, there's times where there's no real cheat or answer. There's a beautiful place here in the gorge called Dog Mountain that blooms like a alpine meadow. I mean, it has just spectacular carpet of yellow flowers. However, it's on a mountaintop right next to the place where I love to kiteboard the most. It's like spectacularly famous for the winds that rip through that gorge. And so I've been up there so many springs and have yet to get one where the flowers aren't just blowing like mad and I can't get the image that I'm after. One of these days, I'm gonna get a day where there's no wind, you know, the weather conditions are just right and the flowers are blooming just right. But I haven't got my shot there. So, you know, it's one of those things you chase after sometimes.
So I misunderstood Harris. You said focus tracking. So would you find that
No.
focal length and
Nah.
track?
I mean, if they're moving, it's about a faster shutter speed. I think, yes, if the flowers are really moving and you want to track one, you could use AFC and put a subject tracking box if you're using a Z camera or a Sony or one of the mirrorless cameras, or use dynamic area autofocus and put it on a single flower and have it track that flower moving, but you still are going to need, a fast shutter speed to stop it and enough aperture. It's just a tricky thing. You really want to shoot flowers on days where there are at least lulls in the wind. I've found myself in places photographing with flowers, just waiting for the lull,
Yeah.
Jim, really nice. The red and green, those complementary colors again. I feel like, I don't know, maybe a little more aperture just to get these close in bits, but it's lovely how you got it sharp enough in the center. The red and the green, really nice.
Yep.
Jim Lamb. I feel it's just maybe backing the green and the saturation. It's saturation that's getting after me a little bit here. It's a beautiful scene, very spring-like. I love those green leaves. I've got them in the ravine outside my house right now, and I love them. The mill is great. I feel like the blue and the green are a little hyper saturated for me.
Yep, I would agree with that.
Wow, lovely moon. I feel that you could probably shoot this as a couple of exposures and blend them.
It is. This is a photo of the April supermoon at St. Michael's. 2 photos combined.
So, and the interesting thing is the clouds, you probably were there for the last sunlight, but the clouds were sort of in the way with the moon, probably. The time to do the moon in the landscape is the night where there's still half an hour of sunlight left as the moon rises, and you have direct sunlight, but beautiful last golden sunlight on your landscape, because the moon is lit by sunlight. And once the sun's gone from the landscape and you get into blue hour like this, the moon is, 10, 12 stops brighter than the landscape because it's lit like full daylight, high noon on the moon. And so it gets tricky to do, you'd almost have to do sort of an extreme eclipse like HDR to get all the detail on the moon, but it's lovely, beautiful shot. I love the composition, and the clouds are gorgeous in it. It actually adds to it, having the clouds. Whenever I'm doing these super moon shots or full moon shots, I am always trying to time it where the moon is low on the horizon while there's still sunlight left, though.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you could also do this as a silhouette, which would be interesting. Yeah, in Moab, we're going to be doing a super moon that way, with beautiful red rock pinnacles in the background with a long lens. We've been scoping it out. But the other way to do it is a little more silhouette too. This would be an interesting sort of silhouette with just a little detail in the building would be interesting too. I think of these shots that Art Wolf did with fairy chimneys, silhouette with the moon behind them. Big. Wow, this is really cool. Who's this? This is Norman.
This is Norman. Japanese maple seeds.
That's beautiful. Nice still life of spring. Yeah, it is cool. I wonder, does he have any details? Is this shot on like a light board It's an interesting.
Doesn't say. He just says shot with the Zeiss 50mm macro, half a second.
That's beautiful.
22. It does look like shot on the background. light
Yeah.
background.
As if maybe, you know, it would probably work to do that on one of these Kaiser light tables like we like to use to duplicate film. Pretty cool. Nice shot. I like the high key. Randy, lovely little baby goose. I was actually shooting some of these. Well, it might be a duck too. Is it a duck or
No,
a
it's
goose?
a goose. It's a goose.
It's a goose.
They always look so good. I saw a couple of baby geese at Wallowa Lake last week, and I remember looking at them and thinking, yeah, but in a year you're going to be just an angry, ugly goose.
Easy now. You're gonna create a backlash. But no, I was shooting baby geese.
I got problems with geese. I'm sorry. They are nasty creatures. They are nasty creatures. You know,
Well,
their babies are beautiful, but
yeah, it's a very cute baby. I would work, you know, I think I'm seeing some in what should be sort of soft out of focus background. I'm seeing a lot of edginess. And I think that's because you're boosting sort of local contrast and sharpening on the baby goose and doing it image wide. And I would make sure that you target that. You know, if you're using on one dynamic contrast, if you're using Lightroom has structure, unsharp mask in Photoshop, whatever software you're using to kind of create that local contrast and sharpening on the baby bird, you want to make sure you're not applying it to your out of focus details. I always want to target that. This one we were talking about a little bit, Ron, Rick and I, you know, is this a composite? You said you shot this with a 600mm on the R5. And I think that this is the crop. I think it's a really nice big full moon image, fun composition, shot with a long lens on a really high resolution camera and cropped.
Yep, 600mm. That's a long way away.
It's cool, really cool shot. You know,
I
we
like the
see
square.
yeah, I do too, and we see so many composited moon shots. That you look at a thing like this and you go, well, that's not real. But this one has a genuine real look to it. You know, it's nice. And the one thing I would say is if you're cropping and you have room, I would shift the crop. I would move the ship and the moon to the left to where the ship has room to move through the frame.
Yeah.
You know, it feels as if the ship is sailing out of the frame from the middle, and I would have it sailing into the frame from slightly to the left. And I think that'll create a little better composition, but it's really cool. That's very, very spring. Roy, got the cherry blossoms there.
Yeah, shot in Kyoto.
I would really like to go to Kyoto. It's high on my list.
Yeah. I'd like a tilt a little bit to the right. It just feels off center to me. Maybe it's just the bridge or the building on the right that kind of slants in a bit, but it's a really fun shot. I like it a lot, actually.
It is a fun shot. If the possibility was there, I'd like to zoom in just a little tighter too. I could do without the street and just have that handrail and flowers around them, but
yeah,
it's nice.
A nice shot.
This is a nice shot.
This one.
I love this one, Sahel. This is just very, very fun. I love long exposures to start with, and the color and processing in this composition, the way that the lines from power lines and the train moving through work together, and this is just lovely. And I love that we can see through it to what's happening behind. So cool. Really nice. Now here you go. This is kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier, that, you know, if you've got that one branch of flowers and it's further away from everything in the background, you can get enough aperture to get sharp throughout the important range, all the flowers that are in here. The only thing I would do in this is maybe zap that one little bit of white up there. That's very small. So simple. Click. But I like how how soft and out of focus the whole backdrop is that just makes these just pop. It's
Yeah,
that
I'd like
isolated branch.
I'd like the flowers a little bit further down to be a little bit sharper.
I'll give you that. But overall, pretty successful. This is lovely. This is lovely, Zale. You know, the noticing this patch of trees and putting it where you did here, lovely. I mean, I could maybe go for just a touch more sky, but the way that it mirrors the shape of the landscape is just wonderful. And when I say a touch more sky, I mean the smallest amount, like up to here.
Yeah.
But it's just great. This is a pano.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's just so cool, you know, this road cut line waving through the top of the hill, waving through the clouds. It's just this wonderful conjunction. Well photographed.
Yeah, very nice job.
This one's really cool, Amy. I love the spider web like structure here, and those backlit dewdrops make it.
That's beautiful, Amy.
It's beautiful. Yeah, just
That's
lovely.
Great composition. The color is beautiful. Yeah, I wouldn't change a thing about this one.
Yeah, no, it's just perfect. Oh, such a nice crane shot, Chris. I might crop it just a little bit so that the bird is, you know, you could even crop vertical. It's so sharp. It looks like there's plenty to crop here just to have it, you know, not in the middle of the frame walking out. That's my only complaint here at all. Yeah. Have a little room to move through. If you cropped it vertical, just, you know, right, you could even do a square. It's cool. Lovely dawn. You know, this is nice and sharp, edge to edge, beautiful time of day.
The sunset.
I would shift my perspective a little bit. I'd like to just pan the camera a little to the right, I think, and put the sun here instead of, it's just almost on center, but slightly off. You know, one way or the other, I would move the sun to be more off center, more in that rule of thirds position. If you drew a tic-tac-toe grid and put it on an intersecting line, I think your horizon's in just the right spot. And maybe now that I look at it even more, because this beautiful cloud is hanging out up here, maybe just bring that cloud in, just tilt to the right. But a nice job getting everything sharp and in focus. And it doesn't bother me that we don't have a distinct disc. This is what I was talking about earlier. If you over edit this, if you try to pull every bit of highlight and white back from the sun, you'll wind up with that little blue line around a disc that doesn't look natural. It's okay to let it bleed out a little bit, to have it be a couple color channels blown to where it's fading on a bright contrasty day like this, where you don't have some haze or something making the sun less intense. You're gonna have, and it looks nice. I love the rays coming out. It's a nice shot.
It's a really nice shot. This is
Jeff.
Nigra Henan bamboo shoot. I'm
Interesting.
Sure I mangled that one.
You know, the one thing I would say, it feels like it just needs to be a little bit sharper.
Yeah.
It's a cool background and nice shallow depth of field, but you just got to make sure you nail the focus and maybe add a little bit of aperture. You've got room. That background's nowhere close to becoming distracting.
He shot it at f2.8 with the 40 millimeter macro.
Yeah, maybe, or focus stack it. You know, start with the closest bit and run a focus stack, and once you've got the whole last bit of this that's sharp, ditch the rest of them. And color, you know, so I'm just gonna, it's a very interesting composition here, Keith. I feel like I'm pulled to the top because it's so much more bright. It's so much brighter. And I'd just love to see you maybe lift up a little and tilt down a little. And, you know, it's fine, I think, to have a little bit of this, but having so much of this top bit be so bright, I'd like the focus to be more squarely on the flowers. Or the composition to be focused around them more. Lovely reflection here. Love the kind of blue hour pre-dawn post sunset shooting. Yeah, nice scene. Interesting clouds. I think you can pull some more shadow detail to get us a little more delineation between these trees and the background hills, and a little more in the reflection, particularly. But it's lovely.
The color toning is beautiful in that one.
It is. So this must be Thomas. If your name is really Roach Thomas, then I apologize from someone who's constantly called Henry Hudson, but I think it's probably Thomas. Beautiful. The scene is, it's that your subject is profoundly dead centered in here. I love the sky. I think that, it definitely tells the tale of this really old hand-built square cut log structure coming down. I'd probably get rid of this one little log in the corner. And I think
probably
maybe
get rid of the
back,
one on the top too.
yeah,
The branch touching the very
branch
top
touching.
of the.
Yeah. I think there's just a little over sharpening potentially going on too, just like some of the trees in the background. But it just feels a little over crisped, like a little over sharpened. I just back the sharpening off a touch, but it's lovely. This is an interesting composite, Wayne. Obviously completely impossible to get the lighthouse shining at you in a Milky Way at the same time, but a nicely done composite and kind of dreamy and interesting. Nice Milky Way.
It would be, if we're thinking about this one again, I would actually maybe try and get it without the lighthouse, without the light so bright.
Yeah, maybe shining off in a different direction.
Yeah.
Or
take it, so you're already doing a composite. Do a third image, which is of the lighthouse without the light so bright. And just sort of composite that in.
Usually that's a timing thing because they rotate.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is I would shoot the lighthouse a little bit wider, and maybe, for me personally, I would put it under the arc of the Milky Way. I'd have the lighthouse a little smaller, a little wider angle, put the Milky Way a bit more majestic over the top. But that's a personal thing. I wouldn't have it quite so close to the edge of the frame either way. But it's cool. It's a nicely done composite. And then we've got Charlie Johnson's shot, which is a lovely little macro. What did he say this plant was? Did he?
Yes, he did. He said it was a tower of jewels. I'm not even going to try and pronounce Echium, Echium.
It's cool. So interesting.
It's very cool.
Yeah. I like the shallow depth of field with it too. Your eye just roves all over this thing. And none of them, this one touches the edge. There's probably no way to avoid it, but
no, I don't think there is.
Interesting. It's cool. It's a really cool plant. Nice work. And then I think this is last. This is Steve Luft. Yep. And it's it reminds me of a scene that we'd see in the Owens Valley.
Yeah.
With those sort of snow-capped bits of the Sierras or the Inyos in the background and the old fence post. And we're going to have actually been talking about maybe putting together in the not too distant future a Owen Valley workshop. Just there's so much there. Late summer where you can go up and do the bristlecone pines and Milky Way and the Alabama hills. But this is a lovely shot, great moment, and
it's another one where it's like the composition, the color, the way the light is just, it's all beautiful way to end. I would, I'd zap the stray, that sort of little stray piece of grass over there, just because.
And I'd crop just inside that one too.
Yeah,
I'd rather have this be the edge than but lovely, really, really lovely. All right, and so that's about it, everybody. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful bunch of images. As usual, you guys have kind of blown us away with the quality of submissions. So these are always fun to do, just because of what great work everyone is submitting. And we give critiques on it, but it's really, really good, universally good work. So fun. I hope everybody's feeling safer venturing out and doing work. Hopefully most of us are vaccinated at this point and able to actually think about even going out together with other photographers, which I cannot wait to be out collaborating. I'm actually going with a group of friends tomorrow night to do some Milky Way work that I'm going to include in this course with the Move Shoot Move course. So I can't wait.
We've got a trip to the Palouse.
Yeah, Rick and I are going to go to the Palouse. We're going to be doing a little bit of stuff for On One. We're going to be doing another sort of photo kit for them, as well as working on some stuff of our own. And Rick's got a new camera.
I do. A1 showed up.
Hey, Rick got his A1, so I'm going to get to play with that in a week and a half here. I'm excited about that. So, all right. You'll be hearing about that. We'll do a little back and forth on that kind of stuff. So do we want to run through some questions before we're out of time here?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's start with Charlie, because this is one that comes up quite a bit in workshops. He says, we make lots of changes at times switching between pano with manual settings and going in and doing stuff for other events. How do you go back and reset your camera to normal, especially if the changes you make may be infrequent for a specific situation? Do you just reload settings from a saved config file? And what he's talking about here is, what we talk about when we talk about it in workshops is, almost every camera these days has sort of this 1, 2, 3 on the dial of the camera.
Right.
And those are your custom settings.
Right.
And basically, like on my Sony, I can go in and I can set up my manual mode for when I'm going to do a pano. All right. I've got my landscape ISO. So I set my camera up that way. And then I save my custom setting 1 on the mode dial to be pano.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I go back into aperture mode or whatever, and I do things, I change my settings around, and then I want to go do a pano, I just go back and set my dial to 1, and I've got that. And so for my cameras, I set up 1 for pano, I set up 1 for time lapse, and I set up 1 for HDR. And you set up for yours, right, Hudson?
Yeah, my U3, which is a click away from manual, is sports and action. The major difference with it is it throws me into shutter priority mode at 1250th of a second, which is good for birds in flight, and I can adjust from there. And it remaps that button under my right ring finger to be subject tracking instead of bracketing. And I don't want to bracket when I'm shooting sports and action anyway. So I can turn on and off subject tracking from the auto area autofocus on the Z cameras. It just remaps that so that all of a sudden that finger activates and deactivates subject tracking. And that's not something I want to do all the time. I just want to flip it into U3 and it's there. And I have my basic settings the way I always want them. And I'm always tweaking around and manipulating. Am I in manual mode? Am I in aperture priority? Am I in shutter priority? And I'm tweaking around with ISO and all those other things. Those are just things I always look at. What mode am I in? What's my ISO? Is auto ISO turned on or off? The other user mode that I set up all the time is U1 is for landscape, and it puts me into not being auto ISO, manual mode,
right.
Exposure delay turned on. When I say landscape, it's not handheld landscape photography. It's when I'm on the tripod and I'm meticulously doing a shot. It's manual focus. It's all those things. So that all I had to do is flip into that, and I know, it's not going to be, everything's manual. I'm in complete control. The one in the middle, user 2, kind of depends on what I'm doing. I might set that up for something specific. I kind of leave that unreserved. The big things I want are action and tripod work, and pano is tripod work. So
yeah.
There you go.
These custom mode settings are, they use every setting on your camera.
Well,
You know,
unfortunately, that's not so true for the Z shooters. It doesn't. The one thing that really bugs me that's not sticky is drive mode. I don't know why, but you know, if I'm in high speed continuous shooting action and I flip into my tripod landscape mode, it doesn't that for some reason doesn't program in. And I've talked to Nikon about that, but
sad
anyway.
to be you.
I know.
It's always fun to go and be ready to go shoot just a one shot, and you have 5 all of a sudden. It's like, oh right, I must have been shooting sports.
Yeah. At least there's a dedicated button to switch it back. But yeah. Always room for improvement. All right.
Dave Hancock asks, he said, you mentioned you can see and work on your Lightroom catalog when you're not connected to your master photos, when you're out remote.
True.
You know, what can and you can't do with the calendar or with the catalog. Can you edit? Can you move photos, folders, or images? Do you use smart previews?
Great question. And that's one of the things, one of the larger projects that Rick and I are actually working on is a sort of organizing how we organize our images and find our images and import them and catalog them. And it'll be a Lightroom based course that's coming. But the answer is that if you have just standard previews built or even minimal previews, all you can really do is see the image. You can't edit it. You can go through and edit its metadata. You could add keywords, those kinds of things. You can put it into collections that will be saved, you know, and then when you plug back into that hard drive, if you plug the hard drive in, all of a sudden they light up and you can do whatever you want with them. If you build a smart preview, then yes, you can edit it. It has a mini RAW in there, and you can even export a relatively decent sized JPEG of it. You can't export a full resolution image of it, but you can do a lot of work with it. You can edit it and it will remember it in the smart preview and apply it when it comes back to the actual image when you get back to your, say you've got a Drobo connected to your desktop. So I work a lot, even with my Mac laptop that I'm sitting in front of right now, with my catalog connected to it, and all my images, the bulk of them, back there on that Drobo system. And I think most people that have been following me for a while know that I use a star system for the quality of my images. The best images of the shoot get 2 stars. Ones that I might want to work on get 1. Ones that I just can't quite delete have none. Everything else gets deleted. And then when I edit up those 2-star images, a few of them make it to portfolio quality when they move up to a 3-star image. And so I don't have that many. I have like 1,000 3-star images from the last 20 years. At some point, I'll move the best of those into 4-star. You know, I need room to grow. But I just make smart previews for all my 3-star images. So I have all my best images I can actually work with when I'm out on the road. It's pretty easy. You can create a smart collection that has all of your 3-star images in your catalog, and then just select them all and go into the menu and say build smart previews for these images, and all of a sudden you're able to work on them when you're on the road. And if there's a folder I want to work on while I'm gone, I can build smart previews for that.
Yeah, I kind of work the same way.
Very handy.
Jim asks, he says he has a 10-year-old Gitzo Mountaineer carbon fiber. And he says he knows you switched recently to Leo Photo, and recall the comment that you'd made a while ago that you'd lost confidence in Gitzo's quality. And he's like, could you elaborate more on that? About what disappointed you?
The quality of the leg locks. The new leg locks look beautiful, but the minute they touch salt water, the rubber strips off of them and you have to call them for completely new leg locks. You know, they're made out of cast instead of, you know, precision CNC'd the way that Leo Photo and Robus and some of the other brands are. They're heavier because of that. The whole top is like a cast metal part with some kind of thick paint, and that was great 10, 15, 20 years ago, but now people are CNCing much lighter, stronger spiders at the top. The safety catch mechanism is not nearly as elegant The Leo Photos designed it so that you can just keep spinning the loosening catch to pull the plate off or the bowl out instead of having to cam it and pull it out and cam it a quarter turn, a quarter turn, a quarter turn, a quarter. There's just a million little ways that I think the Leo Photo is better engineered and nicer. I just found that the Gitzo, the leg locks were the biggest disappointment to me overall. And I've had a number of people who bought them on my recommendation, the latest version, and had exactly the same thing happen. All of a sudden, you've got this slippery piece of metal that you can't get a hold of because the rubber ring fell off after working in the surf for an evening. And they don't sell the rubber rings. You have to they'll replace them if you complain, but they replace a lot of them. So
Zale is shooting with a D850 and wants to move to mirrorless. And he says, I'm enamored with the Fujifilm GFX 100S, which is the medium format. I prefer shooting urban, domestic and foreign. And so this whole thing would entail a complete changeover of lenses and camera.
Yep.
He asks your thoughts about a move to something like the medium format, as opposed to moving to Nikon or Sony or whomever. I know you have not had any real experience with the Fuji medium format.
No, I shot medium format film for quite a
Right.
while, so I have a good and large format film, and I have an interesting kind of take, I think, on the way that I shoot doesn't translate to a format bigger than full frame very easily. It does if I'm solely focused on landscape, but if you want your camera to be a camera that you also use for wildlife or sports or long lens work, the medium format becomes really complicated. I think the smaller the sensor that you have, the nicer it is to work with long lenses. And that's why my ultimate preference is to have a smaller sensored camera to work with my long lenses like the D500 or the Z50, and I dream of a mirrorless D500 at some point. And then a larger sensored camera to work in landscapes with wide angles. I love the full frame plus APS-C, and medium format, even more fun if you have the money for those wide angle lenses for medium or large format. It's great. It's slightly less versatile if you like to do long lens work. If not, hey, if everything you shoot is 105 and below, I think that it's probably a fantastic camera. Everybody that I know that has one loves it.
Ben and I had a very long discussion about this yesterday, in fact, before I even saw this question. And Ben's take on, he loves it, but there's a couple things. First of all, it's medium format in name only. It's just a larger sensor. It is not the size of medium format film 645 or 6x6 or any of that sort of stuff.
It's just larger than full frame.
Larger than full frame. He says it's hard to see it as a camera that's a good general purpose camera. Like, it's big and heavy. And so if you're doing landscapes, Fuji has some amazing lenses. They have some amazing lenses for it. But it's still hard. You still can't get the super ultra wide that you can get with the full frame stuff.
And if you could, it would be really expensive.
Yeah.
Because it has to project a bigger circle.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you're really interested in it, I would rent one and a couple of the lenses. The Fuji lenses are amazing. The only film camera I still have is a Fuji wide angle medium format camera. I'll never get rid of that one because the lens on that sucker is amazing. But I think just in terms of flexibility, you're going to get, as we keep saying, pretty much any camera you buy right now is going to be great. The question is, how versatile do you need it to be? How compact do you need it to be? And how are you really going to use it?
Well, and it's interesting because on the other end of that spectrum, when we talk about micro four thirds, I dabbled in micro four thirds with Panasonic for a while, long ago, before Sony was doing mirrorless. I had a mirrorless Panasonic Micro Four Thirds camera, the GH2, I think, or 3, and it was a lot of fun. And the thing I loved it for was long lens work and, shooting wildlife and things. I have this photo of a crow in Petrified Forest National Park. That's one of my favorite bird photos ever. And it was shot with a kit 100 to 300. And it looks like it's shot with an 800 millimeter lens because the smaller sensor crops and you've got this really long reach with it. But wide angles aren't, you can get a 7 to 14, but a wide angle at 7 millimeters makes it look like the mountains are a molehill way far away. And, so you've got these compromises that you make. If you've got a small sensor, it's tough to do wide angle work. If you've got a big sensor, it's tough to do longer lens work. So it's, you've got trade-offs. And I think the sweet spot falls in that APS-C to full frame end of the spectrum. It's just very versatile. If you're gonna have one camera to do it all, there's a reason why that's it optically, just from the laws of physics.
Well, I think we've wasted another hour of everyone's time.
Now the Car Talk guys are gone. We're gonna have to start carrying on the tradition a little bit.
Do we cheat them and how?
Do we cheat them and how? All right.
So,
well, everybody,
June 1st is the next one. We're going to talk about night photography,
Stars.
Milky Way, move, shoot, move, you name it. There were a couple of night photography questions that we didn't talk about today that we'll bring back up when we talk then. Woody said that the submissions form is already up, so you can submit your questions, submit it. And I think that's all I've got for sort of housekeeping stuff.
I would also say we didn't touch on one thing, which is, for the Z faithful, saving it towards the end, as we often do here for the Nikon mirrorless faithful. They did a big firmware update since we last talked. And I did get a chance to shoot birds in flight in Florida at a really spectacular place to shoot birds in flight. And I was pretty impressed with its acquisition and tracking improvements. And particularly when shooting people. I shot my kids with some other kids that they met there playing in surf and really complicated boiling surf with kids going everywhere. And I felt like the tracking was significantly improved. So if I have comments from folks on that, I will be doing a video about that before we meet again. And I was duly impressed, as I frequently am, with what they're doing in firmware to improve focusing incrementally with these cameras. It's pretty impressive. So cool stuff. All right. And I just want to say one more time, kudos to everybody who submitted images. The gallery was really impressive. It was a great bunch of spring photos. So everybody gets a pat on the back for that. And we'll see you all in a few weeks. Thanks so much. Thanks so much to Woody, David, Darren, Rick, and we'll see y'all next time. All right, guys.
Bye.